Hello, and welcome to another edition of North Carolina 4-H's Daily Spark. My name is Lori McBride, and I'm an area agent for the East Region. I would like to introduce you to the Aspire program and then share some tips for how you can become more confident taking the ACT. Today we'll be talking specifically about the English test. But first, Aspire stands for ACT Supplemental Preparation in Rural Education. It was designed to bridge deficits in rural high school students' performance on the ACT college entrance exam and increase the number of students pursuing higher education. By participating in an Aspire course, you will learn the latest tactics and strategies to improve your ACT score. The program is open to rural high school sophomores and juniors and includes 30 hours of ACT course instruction where students will learn the skills they need to tackle the ACT. Students also receive the Princeton Review ACT Study Manual, their Practice Question Manual, and access to 4 full-length practice exams with score analysis and breakdown. Some fun facts about the English test are that it gives you 45 minutes to answer 75 multiple-choice questions. There are 5 passages with usually 15 questions each. They cover topics from punctuation, grammar, and style, and they treat the test as if you were an editor proofreading. There's no order of difficulty in placement of the passages or questions. You want to make sure that the passages are as clear and well written as possible, not to make them fun and exciting. Let's talk a little bit about scoring and pacing. You have 45 minutes for this section, so you'll want to use your time wisely. You want to make sure that you finish. The passages are roughly equally in difficulty, so aim to spend about 9 minutes per passage. Use your personal order of difficulty. It's now or never. Sometimes you'll do a question later within a passage, but don't go back to prior passages. Remember the letter of the day option. Bubble in your letter of the day on all those never questions. You want to finish because even the last passage will have easy questions, so don't spend all your time finishing each set of questions in the passage and answering those using your time. Letter of the day, the harder ones, that will be more time consuming, so you can make sure you get all the way to the last passage and get points for answering the easy questions that are there as well. Just think about it this way. If you did a section and answered 60 questions, but only got 20 right, that's only 20 points. But if you slow down and use your time wisely, answer 30 of them and get all of them right, obviously that's going to be your better score. So let's look at this pacing chart. How many questions would you need to get a score of 24? If you said 58 to 59, you would be correct. How many additional questions would you need to get right in order to earn a 28 on your English test? $65 to 66 questions, or just 7 more, would give you the 28 on this section of your ACT. How does that change your overall composite score? Since your English, math, science, and reading tests are averaged together, going up from a 24 to a 28 on the English test alone could give you 1 whole point on your overall composite score. And although 1 whole point may not sound like a lot, when you consider that the ACT is scored out of 36 points, every point counts. Some of the strategies that were spoken about on a previous video by April Dillon included stop punctuation. This type of punctuation connects 2 complete ideas: a period, a semicolon, and a comma plus fanboys, a question mark, or an exclamation mark. Then there's also go punctuation. That connects anything except 2 complete ideas: a comma without fanboys, or nothing. So remember, a complete idea can stand on its own as a complete sentence, even though it may be part of a longer sentence. And just for a refresher, fanboys are for, and, nor, but, or, yet. So an incomplete idea cannot stand on its own as a complete sentence and must be linked to a complete idea. Always make sure you read to the end of the sentence before working the question. Otherwise, you cannot correctly judge whether the ideas are complete or incomplete. Let's look at this example. Although some English as a second language teachers work abroad and speak the language of their host countries, those working in the United States do not necessarily share a common language with their students. Let's look and see what differences do you see among the answer choices. If you said punctuation, you would be correct. That's how we know on this specific example, we're supposed to be looking at the different types of punctuation and coming up with the one that is the appropriate answer. Let's break this one down. First of all, remember the vertical line test. You draw the vertical line at the crossroads. The crossroads is the punctuation in the question or the answer choices. And then determine whether you have two complete ideas, a complete idea, an incomplete idea, or two incomplete ideas. When we look at this question, we draw the line right there at the end of the word countries where there is a period. That's our vertical line. But then, when you look at that, the first part of that sentence is incomplete. The last part of the sentence is complete. This means that you can't use stop punctuation here, and the period at the end of that first sentence is stop punctuation. So when we look at our answer choices, we can automatically or process of elimination, A and C, because there must be a change, and then C has a semicolon, which is equal to the period. When we look at B and D, D has too many commas, so your logical answer choice is B. If you need more refreshers about the English test, please see the previous video done by April Dillon about other strategies to use on the English test. For now, we're going to move on to the writing test. ACT writing test graders evaluate essays in 4 domains. They look at ideas and analysis, development and support, organization, language use, and conventions. Scoring on the writing test is from a 2 to a 12. There are 2 different graders that read your essay and score it from a 1 to a 6 based on these 4 domains. Although the writing test has no effect on your composite, your writing score and your English and reading scores are combined to produce an English language arts score. While this English language arts score has no effect on your composite, some schools, like the University of California system, for example, use their own guidelines to weigh the ELA score as part of your composite. This is the range and the key words that the ACT uses to describe the scoring ranges. A 6 is effective. A 5, well-developed. 4 is adequate. 3 has some developing skill. A 2 is inconsistent and weak skill. Or 1 is little or no skill. So on the writing test, to write the most effective essay, allot your time as follows. Spend about 10 to 12 minutes pre-writing, then 25 to 28 minutes actually writing, and another 2 to 3 minutes proofreading. The writing test is optional for colleges as a requirement for application, but since you can't take just the writing portion of the ACT, you might as well take it when you sit for the rest of the test, just in case you need to apply to a school that does require it for admission. Let's look at the basic approach for the writing test. First of all, you're going to work the prompt. The first part of the prompt describes an issue or social and/or cultural concern and identifies an area of tension or disagreement within that issue. You're going to read that paragraph and underline the transition words that indicate that point of tension or disagreement. Then you'll work the perspectives. The perspectives come in three varieties. They can be for the issue under discussion, against the issue under discussion, or somewhere in the middle, providing an overview or synthesis of the issue. Then you're going to want to generate your own perspective. When you write your own perspective, remember that higher scores will have an interesting and unique argument, not just an opinion or statement of fact. And for a sentence or claim to contain an argument, it must be possible to disagree with that sentence or claim. You'll want to brainstorm examples to support your argument by allowing you to explain why your perspective is true. Then you can come from your own, those can come from your own experience or some hypothetical situation within reason, but always be sure to explain how your example supports your position. All that would be considered under the context. Finally, you're going to write. The last part of the essay prompt gives you instructions for writing your essay. And as you've taken into consideration how you allot your time, there are three parts that you'll want to make sure are included in your essay. First of all, that would be the introduction. This is where you're going to make a good first impression and provide a context for the rest of the essay. You should use 3 to 5 sentences to do this. The next is going to be the body paragraphs. This is where the details and the examples that illustrate your arguments come through. Plan for 2 to 3 paragraphs of 5 to 7 sentences each. And finally, make sure you don't leave out the conclusion. Short and sweet will be just fine. 2 to 3 sentences resting your argument and stating why will be sufficient. Also include a closing thought. Before you use all your time, make sure you have a few minutes left to proofread. Adding a few fancy vocabulary words can be a good thing for your essay, but make sure you know how to spell them and what they mean. And finally, make sure your writing is legible. The graders can't grade what they can't read. Thank you for watching this edition of the 4-H Daily Spark. If you would like more information about the Aspire program, please contact Bianca Glaze, the North Carolina State University Aspire Coordinator at bglaze@ncsu.edu, or myself, Lori McBride, at Lori_McBride@ncsu.edu. Thanks again for watching this edition of the 4-H Daily Spark.